Welcome to Bicycle Retail Radio, the bicycle industry podcast that brings retailers, vendors, advocates, and thought leaders to the mic for honest discussions about the latest issues facing retailers while taking an in-depth look at the person within the profession.
All right, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm so excited you're here. This is a super exciting Flex. Let's get into it. Today's Flex version is our Technician Flex. It's the newest addition to Bicycle Retail Radio, and it will be an ongoing podcast feature focused specifically on service center and mechanics, produced in partnership with NBDA educational partner Northwest Arkansas Community College Bicycle Assembly and Repair Technician Program Director, Benjamin Glenn. Benjamin, thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for having me. I've definitely been looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, I am pumped. Like, we at the NBDA, so many retailers focus on the service center and offering some resources specifically for the service center and on mechanics and technician training, those best tips, those little things that can go a long way. So much to dive into. So listeners, this is NBDA President Heather Mason. What we're going to do in this Flex is pretty awesome. And each episode, we are going to cover topics that will vary and also be based on the questions that you, the listener, submit to us. Topics could include Service Department Operations 101, continuing education, so where technicians and mechanics can get service center training, the difference between proactive and reactive service, a whole bunch of topics. And like I said, you as a listener can write to us at the NBDA at any time with questions on bicycle service center, mechanics training, bicycle assembly, and Ben and I will answer them if they're great questions online here. Ben, it's really cool, right?
Oh yeah, I'm excited about this. This is definitely something I've been looking forward to. I think education is absolutely the way forward with any industry, but specifically with the bike industry. You know, I'm very passionate about bicycles, but love the tools and of course, love the educational process.
The NBDA Retailer Summit took place in May 2023, and we were very fortunate to meet Ben to go tour the Community College Educational Service Technician Center where they're doing the training. And actually, if you're listening to us on the radio right now, when you get home, tune into the podcast viewing on our YouTube channel, because Ben is sitting in he has a backdrop, let's say, of the service center, of the classroom behind him. It's a pretty amazing facility. Ben, when did the facility open and start training technicians?
So we just started our third cohorts of students today, actually. So this is year three, starting year three. First year started in the fall as well. Our students run through as a cohort. So basically the folks you start with are the folks you hopefully finish with. It's fantastic because it really teaches a lot of the soft skills that we need in the industry, working retail and just, working on teams going forward. And to kind of catch all our listeners and viewers up to speed, Northwest Arkansas has become a hotbed for cycling over the past decade or so. I grew up here, and it's truly been really amazing to watch. I started cycling, now it's been over 20 years ago as far as the sport goes. And of course, always had a bike growing up, and always loved taking things apart. So being a part of a cycling community that's growing, it's been truly amazing. We have a lot to go. There's a big distance, still a gap with cycling infrastructure here in the area, but I believe we've really made a good dent in that to-do list. From a college standpoint, this couldn't be a better time to have a program like this launch, with the growth in cycling in the area, with cities and the local government really looking at alternative transportation as the future of how we're going to get around Bentonville, Fayetteville, Bella Vista, Springdale, all the major cities that kind of make up Northwest Arkansas.
I'm thrilled to see it. You're offering people in 1 year's time, they can earn a Bicycle Industry Employers Association, that's a BIEA, accredited certification in bicycle assembly and repair. The skills that you're teaching are bicycle mechanics, wheel repair, assembly, bearing, suspension, service department operations, electric bikes. I mean, there's so much. And it's great for us as an industry to have a resource that we can point people to so they can get these professional skills and then bring them back to our retailers and the industry at large. I love what you're doing. You're totally awesome. So I'm thrilled to team up with you on this. So yeah, I don't know. I told you I was just going to throw some questions at you. Are you ready to just be in the hot seat?
Yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, love it.
And this is something that, yeah, I mean, you're a busy guy. Today was day one of classes. And I think you pretty much have rolled out of the classroom into this podcast. So
yeah. You know, like I said before we started recording, I don't think my brain's quite caught up with what's happening today. First day of class is always kind of a snooze. If you've ever taken a college course, it's, you know, review all the syllabus, you know, their syllabi, go into some details about just working in a lab, what it's like, you know, because we really take a scientific approach to how we are teaching. We like to look at you know, why things work the way they do, how they work that way, why are they designed this way or that. You know, we look up, you know, and start getting the chemistry of the chemicals we use in the bike industry. So it's, you know, it allows that technician to really problem solve and be a critical thinker when they come out of the program. So, yeah, I'm ready to get my hands on tools and start working with students on tools. Let's just say that. So
I bet you are. That's awesome. All right. So I have a question. I want to start. It's a question of my own. Sure. You are the educational program director, and I know from my personal conversations with you that you're stoked about what you do. But there's not a lot of, in my opinion, resources like what you have, college degree courses in the US. I know there is in other countries. So I was hopeful you might be able to start by giving our listeners a basic overview of service education in the US. So maybe history, options, like why, pros and cons of formal education, and kind of how that led up. This is a big question, but how that led up to the community college course and kind of why you exist. So that's a big one, Ben.
Yeah, no, I think this is great. I think before we really start talking about bicycle specific education, I feel like it's important to, you know, kind of talk about workforce development or workforce training. That's the department we kind of belong to at the college. But I'd like to kind of look at a little bit of what's out there, some facts. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, about 40% of the time they're seeing manufacturers in the U.S. address any type of skill shortages and by partnering with educational institutes, meaning that those manufacturers, you know, in any industry are supporting or developing some type of training program or some type of educational program in public or private higher ed or even secondary schools. So you have, you know, easy target. You have this community college that has quick, accessible information, and manufacturers are seeing and industries are seeing, hey, this is a great opportunity to create some career pathways, some entry points, just into that workforce development scene. And kind of, you know, why do I even talk about the U.S. Department of Labor? You know, that's not really something we think about sometimes in the bike industry. We're really focused on, you know, the here and now, what's in front of us, and, you know, getting through that work queue sometimes. So historically, and it's kind of still the case, workforce training and education has primarily been on the job or, you know, some type of internal delivery of that. If we look kind of again at some of those numbers from the U.S. Department of Labor, they report that around about 60% of the time that those manufacturers in that industry, whether that's automotive industry or HVAC or plumbing, are addressing training by creating or expanding internal training programs. So if you're bike tech, you're definitely part of the workforce. Bike techs are skilled workers, folks that are counted in the workforce. Normally, bike tech training and education is on the job. You know, I trained on the job. I learned how to wrench on bikes on the job from the smartest person in the room that was willing to teach me how to work on bikes. So let's kind of come back to this thought process, and I'll kind of give you a really quick history of tech education, service education in the bike industry. I like to reach way back. I've got a book that I found last year. This one right here, Archibald Sharp, 1862 publication, Bicycles and Tricycles, a classic treatise on their design and construction. This book is not
That's a thick
not
book.
an easy
That's
not an
serious.
easy read. It is. I haven't read the whole thing. Obviously, I don't think I could understand the whole thing because it's definitely in a different era, written in a different era than we have today. But I'd consider this book the kind of the first ever manual for bicycle service. There's definitely been other books on bicycle service written since, but this late 19th century classic remains unsurpassed in thorough, accurate, technical coverage of almost every aspect of bicycle design and construction. Now, a lot of the information delineated in the publication has almost zero relevance today. I mean, when's the last time you saw one of these outside of some type of parade? It's still kind of a historical masterpiece, and definitely, for curious minds, people that like to get into some real techie, what I would say kind of bike geek stuff. I mean, we're talking about some math involved, some different formulas that are used in design of the bicycle. This book is kind of the way to go. It's really interesting, and it gives a good glimpse into what kind of bikes created what we have today. So back to kind of modern times, there's definitely been, and there's been a lot of service training centers, institutes, schools established. Some of those have come and gone in just a few short years. Others have been a major player and made a major impact on technician training. So I kind of like to point some of those out. The Barnett's Bicycle Institute was established in about 1986. John Barnett, he spent the 1980s teaching off-season classes for professional mechanics and technicians. And if you've ever seen a copy of the BBI manual, it's nothing short of a masterpiece itself. It's definitely unfortunate to see the doors closed, but the knowledge still remains, and the impact is still there in the industry when it comes to service tech work. And then there's UBI, the United Bicycle Institute, a little bit earlier than Barnett. It was founded in 1981, and is the largest trainer of certified bicycle mechanics in the U.S. Only school in the world that teaches bicycle frame building according to their website. And some of these pros and cons, if we take a look at what we have here at the community college in Northwest Arkansas, we're more of a formal education, if you will. So while our program is very diverse with age range, we have a lot of students that don't come right out of high school, that are not coming right out of high school. They've been working in a shop for a little bit, or maybe I've got a person that's been working for a major retailer in the area, and kind of done with sitting in an office and enjoys bikes, and this is kind of a second career, if you will. I had a retired doctor from the University of Arkansas that was a crop soil scientist, finished the program last year, and now he's working in a shop full-time in the northeast side of the state. So our students are not traditional college students. We're definitely that fit into that workforce category. So some pros and cons, I think, about what's out there right now. It's fantastic if you take a look at the quality of technicians that are coming out of UBI and institutes like Barnett's. You've got some highly skilled, highly qualified folks. But it doesn't really diversify the options for people. If you think about a student or someone that might have worked in IT for a while, how do they get into a school like UBI? What's the first step? Are they going to learn some of those key skills, like proper hand tool use? How long are they going to get to spend on those items there? So our program is designed a little differently, where that you could step in, anyone can, and come into your first class. Our first class is Intro to Bicycle Mechanics. We talk about hand tool safety. We get into proper PPE, how to protect yourself, how to protect your environments. when you're using cleaners, aerosols, all that good stuff. So a little bit different approach. We're definitely take the academic approach to education. Let's see. I think maybe this might be a good time to kind of talk about when we started and how we started, kind of why we exist.
Yeah.
2019 BIEA was founded by longtime industry professionals who do share a common belief that our future success will require a pipeline of talented students and professionals. So they were looking at how to continue on and create continue to create some good success as far as longevity goes. They saw a need there and decided, hey, this might be a good idea to kind of look at how can we kind of not really future proof, but almost future proof where our workers are coming from and continuing to feed that. They understood the significant challenge in the industry, not just due to the pandemic. 2009, it was wild times back then, I guess we could say. But they saw those systemic challenges as well. The industry's customer base is a representation of our workforce and is one of the least diverse in the nation. And this is from BIA. This is what they noticed. This is what those longtime industry professionals were sharing in their beliefs. They saw that that there wasn't maybe a bike shop on one side of the town, or maybe there wasn't service available to this specific area where folks live. There's definitely no college or collegiate level programs in the U.S. for students to choose a career in the industry, and the options for achieving a career in the industry, they were a little bit limited. So long story short here, BIEA, their first bike tech programs launched in the fall of 2021, right here in Northwest Arkansas, in Bentonville, Arkansas, and also in Minneapolis at Minneapolis College. So we have another program that runs just like ours in Minneapolis. Similar setup, little different lab, but all the same equipment and all the same courses. Both of these programs are 2 semesters or about 33 credit hours. And students can work to earn a technical certificate. So that's kind of the first diploma in a college degree in bicycle assembly and repair that students can earn. And that's the first time it's happened here in the U.S., which is it's fantastic to be a part of. Students obviously can go on and continue their educational path to obtain an Associates of Science in General Technology with that emphasis in bicycle assembly and repair. So that associate's degree would be a 2-year track to finish out some other general ed courses, history, psychology, things like that involved there, which just further the students' knowledge and abilities to continue a very lucrative career, whether that's in the bicycle industry or something related to bicycle. We have some students that have gotten involved with local governments and helping to create some change as far as policy and regulation goes, infrastructure changes as well. We can enroll about 24 students in each cohort. Right now, we are setting at 23, and I think maybe we'll have one more person sign up between now and tomorrow's class. So kind of got one on the hook. And all these co-requisite courses are designed to be built off each other. So, they do go back and forth. We have a little bit of spillover. So I kind of like to look at the Monday through Thursday classes as just one continuous class, just about. Yeah.
But I love how you gave us a very descriptive journey, kind of what the education has looked like, from books to other facilities. And to think that, not only you, but Minneapolis, other locations, 24 students per class. I mean, the more people we can get educated and trained. And what, if I heard you correctly, anyone can take the course. You don't have to have any skills whatsoever, right? So that's
no prerequisites at all. Just register for classes, buy your toolkit, and come to class. That's it.
And it's a diverse group, like all ages, all abilities, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I know we have a couple questions that retailers submitted, so if you're comfortable, keep going. I'm going to give you a couple more questions. This one comes from a retailer located right outside of New York City. His question is one I hear often, so I think a lot of listeners can relate to this. He wrote to us, I have just hired an employee that I hope to train to be a mechanic, but he has no skills whatsoever right now. So where do I start? I mean, obviously he's not going to send them to you yet because he needs them in the store. So where does he start? Any tips or advice there, Ben?
Yeah, first off, congratulations on the new hire. There's tons of jobs out there, and fantastic that you found someone that's going to fit and that the job fits them. It's always great to get new folks on board and new folks in the industry. You know, we're always excited. Every time I hired a new person when I worked in the shop, it was just kind of reinvigorating, gave me a little bit more energy to put some more motivation and more thought toward how I'm doing the job. But in my experience, you know, kind of with that new employee, you know, that onboarding process is probably one of the most important places to start. So, you know, I always seem to look at my onboarding process. Is it in place? Am I implementing it right? Am I spending time with this new employee? I've definitely made this mistake too many times as a manager and supervisor. And I found that, you know, ultimately setting professional expectations on day one makes the difference between empowering that employee and me micromanaging that employee, if that makes sense. Kind of to speak a little bit more directly to the real part of this question is, you know, how do you train someone that might lack that necessary tech skills? Now, this new person doesn't know, you know, what they don't know or should know, right?
Right.
They just love bikes. I mean, they're working in the shop. They absolutely love bikes. I remember that's how I got hired in the shop. I was doing these shop rides, Monday night mountain bike rides, I think it was. And it's like, hey, this is really cool. And then I was like, all of a sudden I needed a part-time job, and I went in, and I don't even think I filled out an application. I think they just said, yeah, we know you, you're hired. It's like, I know nothing. I know how to take things apart, and, you know, just, you know, kind of fumble my way around bike maintenance. So just love bikes. They've got the passion. And as the trainer, it's important to remember this, you know, that they don't know what they don't know, and they don't know what they should know during your training period or that onboarding process. Your new employee will definitely feel intimidated. They will absolutely feel incompetent. I see this with students all the time, and they'll probably be very aware of their lack of skills. So, you know, I know what I don't know, and I know I can't do that. So that's typically what goes through their mind. You know, we see this with students. I've got some students that, you know, I got one student I actually talked to today, and he's taken bikes apart his whole life and put them back together, you know, to the best of his knowledge, but he's never worked in a shop, never done any type of formal bike repair at all. So, you know, we're going to start with small things, start with what an expert would view as simple tasks. A place where a lot of techs start is on new bike assembly, but I personally have seen this flop. New bike assembly seems simple enough, and it seems like a simple task if you've, you know, worked in a shop, you know, for more than a year. It's unpack the bike, build. Most bikes nowadays are almost fully built from the manufacturer anyway, so there's, you know, not a lot to be done for those bikes you're going to put on the shop floor. But we know that the bike that's built and that's on the sales floor must match the quality of our shop. We definitely cannot afford for any of our other technicians to waste time doing QC checks all day. We need to make sure that we have good bike builders in place so that we can guarantee that every sales floor bike is 100% ready to roll. Another thing we know, and we all know, is organization is absolutely key to efficiency in the service department. If you're not organized, if you're spending 10 minutes trying to find a tag for a bike, or even 5 minutes trying to find a pen, or where did I lay my laptop so I can write up the service order, that's where we can start with a new employee. That's where we can make sure this new employee is confident in the processes of our service department, everything from the front to the back of the service department. Even I hate to say it, but trash in bathrooms. I've cleaned plenty of bathrooms and taken out a lot of trash. I still do that today. I empty our trash when it's full, try to beat the folks, our janitorial service to that. Taking care of the tool storage, making sure our tools are working correctly, that those tools are where they should be. And this definitely teaches value of the whole process of your service department to that new employee. The employee sees the value in emptying that trash can, of not letting that overflow, of taking out those cardboard boxes, of putting our tools back where they should go, of keeping that organized so that we can run an efficient shop. So this will help them to learn the value and all of those elements involved in a successful service center. And then what will happen is they'll bring that value as they learn. So as they learn a derailleur adjustment, as they learn how to adjust that brake, how to set the saddle on a bike, they're going to know that this is an important piece, that, this step can't be missed. I need to put that reflector on the same way so that all my sales floor bikes look the same. It presents well to the customer. It's much easier for our salespeople to know that they're going to pick up a bike to show the customers, to show that rider that it's going to be the same setup every time. So that value, instill that value early on. And, as simple as it sounds, success does breed success. I've seen that, with every cohort we've had in here. And one last thing I'd probably say, and kind of in my personal experience, is one of the best long-term techs I worked with was actually a high school kid I hired to wash bikes, break down boxes, keep the sales floor bikes looking fresh. So basically they're going around with, a duster and keeping the dust down and all that. This kid did this for about a year before he could assemble any bike, any boxed bikes. Then about 3 months after that, he was a full-time production tech. So he was right there. He was, learning how to do service on suspension. He was, one of my best people to work on brakes. He could bleed a brake, and it was really fast. Of course, this was back in the early 2000s when universal bleed kits were almost, you never saw that stuff. So yeah.
I love this format because you're getting a question, you're just answering it from your heart and from your experience. And I think so many of us think, yeah, putting this new tech that doesn't know anything on bike builds is the way to get them up to speed. But you're right, it's not the most efficient because we have to spend time and money on paying someone else to do a QC check. So I love this. It's really insightful, and those policies and procedures and the steps that we take, so important, and they help everyone else be more efficient if we have someone doing that. So awesome response. Let's keep going. Yeah. This one is from a retailer in Maine. We got lots of questions for you. People wanted to ask a lot of questions. So this one's a good one. Another one that I get a lot. The one burning question most of us have had over the years is how much volume service work a good mechanic can do in one day or by the hour. Right.
Yeah, this is a great question. This is fantastic. Of course, there's no questions about questions, but there's some questions that really that are kind of maybe tough to answer. But first and foremost, workers definitely need to be respected. I'd say make sure they're paid well, have some PTO involved, and there's some attractive benefits. I'd add also, like, cash in the pocket is always nice, but that PTO, if I have a flexible work schedule, if I know that I'm going to be able to have an extra hour that day to do the things I need to do personally, I'm really going to put a lot more effort into my job, into coming in even at the college, and being able to do my job and have that mental space to make sure I'm focused. So speaking of cash, how much money does the shop want to make, right? I mean, that's what we're all out to. That's why we're, we do love bikes, but if we weren't making any money on it, it might be kind of a tough sell for some of us. What I would suggest on this one is to set some benchmarking times and revisit those annually. You can use your off-season time and use your techs that are in your service center. They can run through a service procedure on a bike. You could take the average time, between 2 or 3 techs, and then determine that workload based on the benchmarks. For example, in the bike tech program here at the community college, we teach students to adjust a drivetrain or 2x drivetrain, which typically that adjustment, we have the cables detached, the limits are all kind of messed up, the rear wheel might be off center. We teach them to adjust that in 20 minutes or less. So that's our ultimate goal, is that we want to get every student that comes in the door to be able to adjust a 2x drivetrain in 20 minutes or less. And that's off some kind of national standards that BIEA helped us acquire. But of course, we have to remember that tech work doesn't always pan out perfectly. There's going to be an ebb and a flow to the day. but the expectation should be that, there's continued work on that service queue, that there's efficiencies in place, that there's a process to your service. It's not just, oh, I'm going to do, this one, I'm just going to pick one out of a hat and do this repair. So just remember, respect your employees, but keep those expectations where they should be.
I like that answer. I like that answer a lot. There's a lot of things to be considered there, and I think everyone will have a little bit different situation. Critical what you said there about respecting the employees and the paid time off. This one is from a mechanic, and it's a mechanic friend of mine, but I'm going to protect his identity and just let you know he's from Vermont, which means he's super cool. But he writes, I have been working in the service department at a local retailer for the past few years. And often we have, I love this question because I think this happens to me too. Often we have tubeless valve caps that come in stuck, like when you're unable to open them, I'm sure you know. I, as a mechanic, advise the riders to open them often to fill with air, but they still seem to get stuck. So do you have any fail-safe tips? This one's truly a mechanic technician question.
Yeah, that's great. Tubeless is great until it isn't. I love tubeless. I think that's a place the industry could continue to evolve. It's getting better and better. I remember the days of, Stan's no tubes and those conversion kits, and then some of the Mavic stuff, which is, a big plastic rim strip. And, it's come a long way since those days. But honestly, there's still some specifics that you need to remember to do, which is refreshing that sealant at least every 3 months. And, if the customer really doesn't remember the last time they refreshed it, it's kind of like your chain. If you don't remember the last time you lubed your chain, it's probably time to lube your chain and refresh that sealant, add some sealant in there. There's the sealant can dry out, and you definitely want to make sure you keep that going. So if you do have a flat or you get something stuck in your tire, then, the sealant's going to do its job. So the valve cap is part of the valve, and in my experience, plastic threads typically don't hold up too well against metal threads. It's quite possible the rider might be, there's cross threading happening or over tightening the cap onto the valve, then it eventually becomes stuck. Valve caps should just be turned until they stop, no more than that. So if the rider's turning until it feels really tight, that's probably too tight. So it's just turn it until it stops, and that's it. Tubeless valves can also get a buildup of sealant.
Yeah.
So it's a good practice to actually clean those valves. So actually, just like you would your drivetrain, so a little, Dawn dish soap or your favorite soap there, and just give them a little scrub. That's going to, go a long way in keeping the gunk from building up on that valve. You could even, have the shop take the valves completely apart, valve core out, clean the inside of that. Usually pipe cleaner works fantastic. You always want to clean up after you add any sealant. One tip that I actually picked up recently, and again, there's all sorts of great things about tubeless and all that, is that the 10 o'clock and the 2 o'clock positions, or 4 and 7, about 45 degrees from the ground, is the ideal position to have your valve end, add sealant, or adjust air pressure. And this has to do with, without further going off into the weeds, this has a lot to do with fluid dynamics. In one of these positions, you basically make it harder for air to push that sealant out and then into your valve and get it clogged up. So 10-2, 4-7, we're having that valve about 45 degrees to the ground is the ideal position to add the air, add the sealants, and to keep the sealant from traveling out of your valve. And then you got sealant inside the valve, it dries up, and then things like your valve cap gets stuck on, kind of glued on to the end of the valve. And of course, you always want to have a rag or a towel at the ready for any leaks. You want to clean up that valve. And shops know this. Have a supply of extra cores on hand. They're almost always a universal fit. And they have a great shelf life. I don't think I've ever known of a valve core, going bad. So they last forever, and they're usually low cost.
I love the tech questions. Listeners, give us more tech questions. Give us like derailleur adjustment tips. Give us bottom bracket stuff. Ben, I can just tell you just like lit up. You're so ready to talk about the sealant. I love that question too. So I like the tips of the 10 and 2 and 4 and 7, 45 degrees. All right, we'll do one more question for today and then we'll wrap up our first episode. The last question comes from a mechanic in California. So another mechanic writing to us. He says he works full time, so he can't get away to an in-person training course. So do you have an excellent resource that you would suggest for someone who wants to improve their skills if they can't get away?
Yeah, this is great. And if you think about, if you're a one person shop, I know there's a lot of one person shops out there. How do you make time to do these in-person trainings? Where are you learning? Where are you brushing up on your skills? Where are you learning about new technology? It's really hard, really tough. But I almost always turn to manufacturers. Almost all manufacturers have some sort of online training portal. Shimano, SRAM, Magura, to name a few. There's something specific that you're wanting to learn, give that manufacturer a call. Call up, if you Shimano, SRAM, any of those folks. They're gonna be more than happy to walk you through that, or at least share some type of educational material, whether that might be just emailing you something or directing you to, hey, we have this other website or we have this YouTube channel, and maybe it's kind of kept a little secret, but they want nothing more than to have the best educated technicians working on their products. They want you to know how to do those adjustments. They want you to know how to make the service happen on their products. They don't want you to cut any corners. Also, consider things outside of the bicycle industry. SKF bearings, they have some amazing educational material out there, and if you just give them a quick email, or if you give them a call, they're going to point you in the right directions. Even brushing up on things like UL standards. There's a lot in the pipeline for e-bikes, lithium-ion batteries. So you can always, keep abreast to what's happening. Just go over to the UL website, take a look around, reach out to those folks, and they'll more than happy to send you that information. One that I found was Loctite. Loctite, they make thread locker. It's a little bit more kind of consumer based. It's decent. And you're going to definitely pick something up valuable, even if it's just that certificate to hang on the wall. So it's going to say, Loctite, your name, all that good stuff. But you went through those courses, you're probably going to pick something up maybe you didn't know before. And to let you know, customers notice those things, those certificates when you hang them on the wall. So, display those prominently, keep them updated as well. So if it's been 6 or 7 years since you've jumped on to Shimano's, technical university, go and get onto Spark Retail and, update your account and get onto those things, because there's, new things out there. There's also, you might pick up on some things that are, in the, coming down the road. So some new technologies out there. The idea here is, make sure the continuing education is from a credible source. Podcasts are great too. I've learned a lot on podcasts too. So
yeah, and you mentioned a book earlier. We'll link in the show notes. I mean, there's lots there. Those are great suggestions.
Yeah.
Gosh, I feel like we could just keep going. I got to save some questions for the next episode. So if you're okay, Ben, we will close it off here for our listeners. But yeah, if you're tuning in, you can also see a version of the podcast with our awesome faces and get to see the background, Ben's classroom, if you go to our YouTube channel. Ben, thank you so much for the first episode today.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Love it, and huge value for me. It's fantastic to go through these questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so retailers, mechanics, mobile retailers, give us your questions. Any questions, like anything will go, Ben, right? You're willing to answer anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. As long as it falls into that service or service education, something to do with that. That's what I like to, get into is, how do you just, progress and have that growth mindset?
I love it. I love it. So listeners, you can put those questions over to us at heather@nbda.com, and I will share them with Ben, and we'll answer a couple on every podcast. Thanks for listening. Ben, thanks for being here. If you're not up to speed with the latest NBDA activities, head over to our website, nbda.com. Read more there. We'll also link to the community college's website so you can see what's going on there. Ben, I'll see you again next month. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Heather.
Thank you for listening to Bicycle Retail Radio. This podcast is designed specifically for the bicycle industry, dedicated to strengthening our retailers and cycling community. If it is your first episode, we urge you to take the time and listen to our past episodes.